Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of my podcast, Soul Talk and Psychic Advice. Today, we're talking about something that affects far more people than they realize: the fear of someone being mad at you. Maybe you avoid difficult conversations. Maybe you don't say no. Maybe you apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. Maybe you keep your opinions to yourself because you're afraid someone will disagree with you. Or maybe you stay quiet while someone crosses your boundaries because the thought of upsetting them feels unbearable. If you ever felt physically anxious just imagining someone being disappointed, irritated, or angry with you, this episode is for you. Today we're going to explore why this happens from a nervous system perspective, how it develops, and how you can begin speaking your truth without abandoning yourself. Surprisingly, a lot of adults have a fear of someone being mad at them, and they won't speak their truth to their romantic partner, friends, family, no one. And they just hold it in. And I will ask, well, how do you feel holding it in? And they're like, it doesn't feel good, but I can't have someone be mad at me. And I ask, well, what is the worst thing about someone being mad at you? And they often can't explain it. They don't know. And they just have this fear. And it's just, I'm afraid. I can't. And so we're going to dive into this. Being afraid of someone being mad at you, it's rarely about the present. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing they're simply too nice. Really, when someone's too nice, that is a trauma response. That's protection when someone is too nice. But this isn't about kindness. It's about safety when you are afraid of someone being mad at you. Your nervous system learned somewhere along the way that conflict wasn't safe. Perhaps growing up, anger led to punishment. Maybe love was withdrawn. Maybe there was yelling, criticism, emotional manipulation, silent treatment, or unpredictable emotional explosions. Your nervous system became incredibly intelligent. It started asking, how do I stay safe? For many people, the answer became, keep everyone happy. People pleasers, overgivers. Don't make waves. Don't disagree. And I've seen this a lot with adults. And I'd be in a social circle, whether it was a meetup around friends or whatever environment, and you see that there are some adults that will agree with the bully or agree, with the person who is being toxic because it's safe, and they're just nodding their head. And they're not speaking up, and I always thought, why do they agree so much with the bad person? And it's like, duh, because it's safer to do that. The person who's bad mouthing, causing harm, being negative, judging, being critical. The people who are afraid of someone being mad at them are going to agree with those people. Maybe you experience emotional manipulation, silent treatment, or predictable emotional explosions. Your nervous system became incredibly intelligent because of this. It started asking, how do I stay safe? For many people, it became keep everyone happy, right? Don't disagree. Don't make waves. Don't speak too loudly. Don't have needs. Don't upset people. This wasn't weakness. But it's interesting. Don't have needs. But this is all about survival. And that's why there are those people who are so nice and they give so much to everybody. And when you look at them, they're like, I don't need nothing. I'm okay. They need a lot, just like everybody else. But they say, no, I'm okay. And these are the people who spend a lot on gifts, and people rarely give them anything in return, but they feel the need to give very expensive gifts. And, eh, you know, hey, I remember a time when I was like that. Let's talk about the fawn response, because the fawn, FAWN response, has a lot to do with this. Many people are familiar with fight, flight, and freeze, but fewer people know about the fourth trauma response, the fawn response. Fawning means abandoning yourself to maintain connection. I think all of us have done it at one point or another. You become the peacekeeper, the caretaker, the overgiver, the people pleaser. You monitor everyone else's emotions before your own. You become incredibly skilled at reading the room. Empaths, you know when someone is slightly irritated before they even say anything. Yes, this is part of the psychic gift growing. I think we all are born psychic, but this is how it really grows when you learn how to read the room and anticipate people's emotions. Yeah, you know exactly how to, guess what someone's feeling. You know when they're slightly irritated before they say anything. You notice tone changes. I even notice that sometimes when I'm coaching and I have, as you could tell, allergies and sinuses, and my tone will change. And, people say, well, I think you meant that to be negative, but you're trying to clean it up. Or I thought you were going to say it this way, or why did you say it that way? And I say, I'm barely breathing over here. Plus, I live in the city of trees, so yeah, I got allergies. I always have, and they're worse here, even though I love this place. And so sometimes when we listen to tone, we think it means one thing when it may not mean anything. Sometimes tone just changes, but any slight change in tone. And a person who doesn't want to upset other people, they're on notice. And you also notice those facial expressions and the energy shifts. And yeah, some people have big energy shifts when they're moody. And don't irritate them any further. You become emotionally hypervigilant. And it's so hard to live this way. I lived this way after my mom died. And eventually, someone else's discomfort feels like your emergency. So you rush to fix it, even when you've done nothing wrong. Why, speaking your truth feels dangerous. And it does. You see these videos and they're like, I had trouble speaking my truth, and then I became 40 or 50 and I just said, screw this. No, it's a lot deeper than that. You know, the videos are, their introduction. Somebody's telling their story, but I sometimes wonder if they're avoiding saying the deeper issue, or do they know there's a deeper reason? It isn't just because we're in our 20s and 30s that we're afraid to speak our truth. There's reasons behind that. Did you grow up in an environment where it was safe to speak, or where you told you're a child, you don't talk when adults are talking. You're to be seen and not heard. Especially as older adults. I had a mom that let me use my voice because my mom was feisty. She was a 4'11" firecracker, and she wanted that for her daughters. But when she died, I lost all that. And then I was in environments where I was no longer seen. I was invisible. And, so were you invisible? Do you look back and say, I remember that? It's important to know these things if you really want to overcome whatever you're trying to overcome. It's important to look back. Maybe you got to look back with a therapist or a counselor or your pastor or coach, but look at where this comes from. It just doesn't show up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed that simply saying, I disagree, or saying no, that doesn't work for me? I need more time. I feel hurt. Can make your heart race. Yeah, because it's not safe to have boundaries. That's because your body isn't reacting to today's conversation. It's reacting to old experiences. Your nervous system remembers. It says, last time we spoke up, it didn't go well. And a lot of times I talk to clients, especially with relationship issues, and they're like, I only want to speak up if it guarantees an outcome. And I say it just doesn't work that way. And so relationships, romantic ones, are all about healing the stuff, the communication issues. You can't only speak when things work out. You got to speak and trust that being intentional and speaking your truth will eventually lead you to where you want to go. So even healthy conflict feels life-threatening. Your body begins producing stress hormones. Your muscles tighten. Your breathing changes. Your mind begins rehearsing every possible negative outcome before you even open your mouth. Sadly, yes. And sometimes I tell people just keep on rehearsing the conversation until you get comfortable and ask yourself, do you deserve to speak your truth? And, yes, do the somatic work. Dive in because it won't get easier. You won't find someone who you never have to have tough conversations with. They're always going to come up. They're part of relationships. That goes for friends, family members, not just romantic partners. And people think, well, if I feel this way, the person must not love me. And it's like, no, that isn't what that means. That means there's some trauma to deal with. The cost of staying silent. Remaining silent can feel safe in the moment. But over time, silence becomes self-abandonment. Yes, every time you ignore your needs, you teach yourself they don't matter. Every time you suppress your emotions, you disconnect from yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean to say no, you build resentment. Eventually, people think they know you, but what they're actually experiencing is the version of you that's trying not to upset anyone. The authentic you remains hidden. Ironically, the very thing you're trying to preserve, connection, that is not able to happen because you're hiding your authentic you. And we can't have connection when we're not being our authentic selves. Actually becomes, less genuine, right? When you hide parts of yourself, you don't get the connection. Because people can't truly know someone who is constantly editing themselves. And it may have been safe to do so, so you thought. But look at your life. Do you have the relationships that you want with people, the connections, the depth? And yes, sometimes we get around people who are negative or toxic, and it's like, oh, darn, here I go again. This connection isn't going to work. And that's okay because they've got their own stuff. And you can't keep on adjusting yourself and not being authentic to yourself to accommodate somebody else who hasn't dealt with their stuff yet. Because when do you get to be you? And even if you're desperate for friends or a romantic partner, that's not the way to do it because it's just going to get worse. We hear too much in the news about bad relationships for this not to be taken seriously. To make sure you're being healthy so that you can attract someone who is. If you keep on people pleasing or accommodating or agreeing, to stop someone from being mad at you, you could end up somewhere dangerous. It's not simple, it's very big. It goes way bigger. So that's important to remember. Being regulated doesn't mean everyone likes you. No, it doesn't. If anything, a lot less people are going to like you because you're comfortable with yourself, your confidence is showing, you like who you are and you don't feel the need to people please or overgive, and they have to know you differently and they can't control you. Some people spend their whole life saying, I got this person figured out. I got their number. I know what they're about. I know how to manipulate them. I know how to get them to do what I want them to do. And when you are regulated and taking care of yourself, they don't know that anymore. So they don't like you because they can't control you. They can't manipulate you. And they don't like your confidence. You'd be surprised how many people don't like confident people. And it's not just simply jealousy, it's because, oh, I can't get over on them. One of the biggest lessons in embodiment is this: regulation is not getting everyone to approve of you, because they won't. Regulation is remaining connected to yourself. That's what it is. Even when someone disapproves, this is a profound shift. Many people believe healing means no one gets upset anymore. They're going to get more upset. But that's impossible. Healthy people disagree. Healthy people have boundaries. Healthy relationships experience conflict. The goal isn't eliminating conflict. The goal is staying present during it. Imagine saying, I understand you feel upset, without immediately trying to fix it. You see, I understand you feel upset. You have a right to your feelings, but it doesn't mean that I should adjust my boundaries. It doesn't mean that. And yeah, you might have some issue with that person, then they're not your person because they're not respecting that you have boundaries. They're making everything about them. And so, oh, I'm not going to immediately try to fix this. Imagine someone disagreeing with you and your nervous system remaining calm is really nice. When you heal people pleasing and overgiving, ask me how I know. Um, it's so good. It's so wonderful. It's so delicious. You just know a freedom and a peace. And, you just realize I'm not going to, fix everything all the time. Fixers are exhausted. They're dysregulated. They're not the good little helper. They're doing that for a reason. So imagine allowing another adult to experience their own emotions without assuming you're responsible for regulating them. That's freedom. Imagine that. That's wild, huh? To imagine allowing another adult to experience their own emotions. And you don't have to go, oh my God, they're mad at me. Oh my God, they're upset. Oh my God. Yeah, let them be. They survive. And that's the beauty of it. And, if you have a difficult partner and they're always upset, it's time to ask yourself, is this where I need to be? It's time to ask some questions. If you have to constantly accommodate them because they're going to have a fucking tantrum, no. Okay, your job is not emotional management. Let's talk about it. Many people unknowingly believe if someone is mad, I failed. But that's simply not true. Other people's emotions belong to them. You're responsible for your integrity, your kindness, your honesty, your boundaries, not their reactions. Someone can become upset because you set a healthy boundary. Someone can become angry because you stop people pleasing. Yes, they will. Someone can criticize you because you're becoming more authentic. How dare you? That doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes healing disappoints people who benefited from your self-abandonment. And that's incredibly uncomfortable, but necessary. Oh, yes, and you will get the people who say, who does she think she is? It's like I'm someone who's going to respect myself. I'm no longer abandoning myself. Speaking your truth is an embodiment practice. Speaking your truth isn't about becoming louder or harsher or confrontational. It's about allowing your inner experience to have a voice. It could sound like, I need some time to think. I see this differently. I can't commit to that. That doesn't feel aligned for me. I'd like something different. Notice, none of these statements are aggressive. They're simply honest. Embodiment is learning that honesty and safety can exist together. Every time you tell the truth kindly, your nervous system gathers new evidence. It begins realizing, I can survive this. I don't have to abandon myself anymore. Over time, your body learns that authenticity is no longer dangerous. How about that? That's what it's about. Authenticity is no longer dangerous. And yes, it takes time. All of us get there on our own schedule. And, people get there when they start doing the work. And you start doing the work when you realize that you want to feel different. That what you're doing is not working, accommodating everybody else and putting yourself last or not honoring your feelings doesn't work. Closing reflection. I like to leave you with a question. Whose disappointment are you still trying to avoid? And what part of yourself have you sacrificed in the process? Healing isn't becoming someone who never feels afraid. Healing is learning that your truth deserves to exist, even if someone doesn't like it. The more regulated your nervous system becomes, the less you'll need everyone else's approval to feel safe. You discover something beautiful. Not everyone has to understand you. Not everyone has to agree with you. Not everyone has to be happy with you. But you deserve to be honest with yourself. That's what it's about. You deserve to be honest with yourself. And a lot of people walk around and say, I'm honest, I tell the truth. And yeah, they're telling the truth about a lot of things, but are they telling the truth about how they really feel? Are they telling, the truth about, I don't agree with this person, but they're keeping quiet because they don't want to have a confrontation? And it's very important to look at those things. A lot of people are telling the truth to the best of their ability, about a lot of things. And a lot of us, I mean, for a lot of years, I always feared karma, always feared that, and not telling the truth and having a deceased mother. I always knew tell the truth, be honest, but it took a while for me to really not people please and overgive. And it was really thinking about what would my mother think of me? She's seen what I'm going through if she's looking down, but how I got here. But I started looking at that and looking at being a mother. What do I want to teach my child? And there's some times where we see this stuff now and it bothers me. Take the high road, take the high road. No, because if you're constantly taking the high road, yeah, you don't. To me, the high road is like, don't be violent, don't be nasty. But if you're constantly taking the high road of not speaking your truth, is that good? Because you're not going to feel good inside. And we have to stop encouraging this. Just let it go, because you're enabling the abuser, you're enabling the toxic person when you don't speak your truth. And that's how, when people go, the world is bad, it's not the whole world is bad, but that 10-15% is making it real bad because nobody stood up. And so we all start with standing up within our circle. I stood up to a relative and I said, it stops today. And this relative was about 66, 67 when I said this, older sibling. And, I was in my 40s and I said, your stuff stops today. And there will be no more of this. And yeah, we went to war. But, Are you going to stand up and stop the generational trauma? Are you going to break the curse? Are you going to show your kids how to function in the world? Because you won't always be here to protect them. And we're living in a season where people are overly protecting their kids and not giving them enough skills to survive. And so what you heal within yourself spreads out, right? It spreads out to your children, to your loved ones. You give other people courage when they see your bravery. And yes, it starts with addressing some painful things. And I know we're in the society of wanting to feel good all the time, but you can't feel good without doing the work. That's how you really feel good. Instead of looking for the next event, the next party, it's really going inward. And remember, this is my diary. This is my journal. This is what I want everyone to see that I've learned within myself and having clients for 24 years. And that's what this podcast is about. It isn't just like grow a business. You know, it's bigger than that to me. To share these things to help people understand the importance of their life, the value of their life. Is speaking your truth, and you can't always worry about how someone responds. Yes, you're going to lose people. When I stopped being nice, Donna, a lot of people walked away. Fuck them. Excuse my language, but seriously. Because they wanted me to stay small so that they could have control. They wanted to use me. They didn't even like me, really. They just were around me because I could be used. So do you want people around you who don't really love you? You're not getting love from them because you're accommodating them. They may not even love you or like you. They just like that they could control or manipulate or get you to do certain things. Think about it. Um, think about it. And it may be a painful realization, been there, but it's an awakening that's necessary and becomes beautiful, and the freedom after it is just delicious. So I want to thank you for listening before I keep on ranting, but this means a lot to me because I see it so much in people. I hear it all the time, but they're going to be mad at me. And it's like, don't sacrifice yourself to stop someone from being mad at you. You get to be first in your life. So I want to thank you again for listening. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode.